Welcome back to the show. Jake here with Action for Liberty. We got a show where we expose corrupt politicians and the lying corporate media. Joining me today is Jesse, otherwise known as MAGA Jesse. How you doing today?
Doing good, Jake. Good to be with you. And not only does our country need to be made great.
In the U.S. Senate, they don't win the majority, which is a really big deal, especially when you got a crazy president like Joe Biden.
Mm-hmm.
And so you'd think, oh, well, it's time for some leadership change, right? But no, let's go with Mr. Turtle himself, Mitch McConnell, the same guy that failed to win back the Senate, the same guy that rams the most moderate, left-leaning legislation down, Rhino in chief.
The biggest transfer of wealth and upward transfer of wealth was because of him and Nancy Pelosi through that COVID bill. You know, they were giving all of this money to the corporations. They were helping out their buddies. They weren't helping out the people. And that's when people were losing their jobs. That's when people were, forced to wear masks and stay in their homes. So
and backstabbing Trump while he's at it, right?
Absolutely. That's one of the biggest reasons I don't like him, too. He didn't have Trump's back during all of the election fraud that I saw during 2020. He didn't have his back when Trump was trying to stop the electoral college votes in certain states, allowing for an investigation. We just wanted to get to the bottom of it. We just wanted the truth. And Mitch McConnell wanted no part in that, and he's been incredibly weak with Joe Biden during this entire presidency.
So that's who it is. And, quite frankly, there was another good option because wasn't it just Rick Scott that ran against him? So
yep,
Rhino, it's
and Rick Scott, of course, he's better than Mitch McConnell, but Rick Scott is also a problem in and of himself because that guy was the reason that so many candidates like J.D. Vance and others were struggling, not having enough money. It's because Rick Scott blew through it all. He was giving it to states that didn't matter. He was spending it in Washington, unwinnable elections, so that Rick Scott wasted all this money. People had to go to McConnell, try and take his money just so they had a chance to win. And that's how this whole system works. That's how he gets tied. That's how he gets reelected over and over and over again because he's got all these people that he's funding their campaigns, so they're loyal.
Yeah, zero hope when it comes to the Minnesota. Sorry, I'm so used to saying Minnesota. Minnesota Senate actually changed leadership, so no change in the U.S. Senate.
Yep, and there was only about 10 people that voted to oppose Mitch McConnell in that election. That was very interesting. Only 5 of them have come out publicly. And actually, surprisingly, Lindsey Graham was one of them. Lindsey Graham, the ultimate rhino, was one of the people who had the balls.
Trump changed Lindsey Graham, though. You know that, right?
Yep.
Actually, Trump didn't change him. His constituents changed him.
Yep, that's right.
This guy's got to change.
Yep, he's a chameleon.
That's how politicians work.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so what's going on in the U.S. House then?
Yep, so the leadership there, it's even more interesting because Kevin McCarthy, Rhino Kevin McCarthy, looks like he is finally going to be taken out from the leadership. And this guy has been working his whole life. He's wanted to be the Speaker of the House so bad. He was John Boehner's right-hand man throughout the entire time Boehner was in there. This guy is as corrupt as it gets, and it's finally coming to the surface. And there's enough Republicans who are going to oppose him on the floor. So Andy Biggs had challenged him.
So people understand you have to have a majority of the votes.
Right.
And so right now, the Republicans have a 4-seat majority, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Is that correct?
Yeah, something like it's
we don't
4
know
or 5, right?
Yeah, we don't know what the number is going to be. So probably 4 to actually is it 5? What is it?
Yeah, 4 or 5. So the number that I'm hearing is that 5 Republicans need to oppose Kevin McCarthy on the floor. And Kevin McCarthy, he comes out today and says if Republicans want to try and play these games, somehow the Democrats are going to take control of the House.
Oh, yeah.
He knows he's in trouble. That's why he has to go with this smear tactic, because it's exactly what the Democrats tried to do last time when Pelosi was about to be ousted. But then they decided, they ran this smear campaign saying that if you do this, then Kevin McCarthy becomes the Speaker. That's not how this works. We have an interesting video, Matt Gaetz, explaining some of the options that are provided that him and others are looking at to replace Kevin McCarthy with. So, Dawson, go ahead and pull up that video, and it shows some of the inner workings, the dynamics of how these discussions really go down.
Which one is this one? It's the YouTube one?
Which one?
Yep, it's the video of Matt Gaetz. Yep, that's the one.
On Charlie Kirk show?
Yep.
Information. We live here and it's a joke. Matt, stay right here for another segment. Okay, Matt Gaetz is here. Matt, as you can tell, we're here in third world America trying to figure out how many ballots there are. It's a catastrophe. It's really, really frustrating. Okay, so Matt, then let's go through some names then. Who could unite the caucus?
Well, and you have to remember, just as conservatives and America First MAGA folks would have a veto, so would folks who make up the moderate cleavages of our caucus. But let's go through, a few people who I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike these members of Congress. And by the way, I would not be on this list. But I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Jody Arrington. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Roger Williams. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Tim Burchett. I don't believe there are 5 people who like Kevin Hern. I don't believe there are 5 people who dislike Steve Womack. And I don't think there are 5 people who dislike Patrick McHenry. Now, on the outside, there are also some creative choices. I've heard people talk about Jim DeMint as sort of a thought leader in the conservative movement, respected by a lot of people, been out of, the exact jousting of the legislative game for a while. I've heard the name Tulsi Gabbard, someone who might actually bring us a few folks from the left who are tired of the corrupt ruling class in this town. Some folks have even thought about dusting off Newt Gingrich and bringing him back as kind of a wise old gray hair. And then if an issue that we need to focus on is central to bringing Republicans together at the border, how about Chad Wolf? Chad Wolf served in the Trump administration, did great things as the Homeland Security Secretary, still doing a lot of great policy work at the America First Policy Institute.
Inform people here, because I don't think a lot of people understand this. The Speaker of the House, really, it's the job of that person to speak on behalf of the House in its entirety. Mm-hmm. And that has become such a partisan position, but it doesn't. And if she was ever to be out of step, the majority party could always just replace who the speaker is because they have the votes, right? But Jim DeMint, to me, kind of sounds like the better option.
Yeah.
Right?
I thought that was a good option,
you don't want to go with Trump.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, I'd love it for it to be Trump, but no, I don't think that's going to happen. But, he brings up a very interesting point that, just like the MAGA people of the caucus have a veto of who they would like, so do the moderates. So it has to be someone that is able to unlock the potential of each member of the caucus. So he's looking just for someone that isn't going to insult him. Kevin McCarthy has been nasty to Matt Gaetz, and Matt Gaetz is finally saying karma's coming back to you. So it's a crazy election, and I think we are going to see Kevin McCarthy lose this potential because he came out this morning, like I say, he's doing a press conference saying he's not going anywhere and he's still going to run. But there is an article that lays out that there are already the number of people necessary to oppose him. They've already publicly come out and said it, and there's already Liberty people like Thomas Massey and others who we think will also be opposing Kevin McCarthy on the floor. Dawson, there's another article, you could pull that up, of the list of people who are going to be opposing Kevin McCarthy from the start on the floor. Yep, so go ahead and start scrolling down there, and you can see the list of people who are, right there. Andy Biggs, he was the person who challenged Kevin McCarthy for the speakership to begin with in the Republican Conference Committee hearing. I'll go ahead and keep scrolling. Bob Good out of Virginia, he's a guy who's not a fan of Kevin McCarthy because Kevin McCarthy spent a ton of money against him in a primary. And that's how Kevin McCarthy wins a lot of these votes, too. He buys people out in these primaries, and then they're attached
never
to him
seen that
from the hip.
before, right?
Oh, yeah,
We're gonna
exactly.
get into that when we talk about Republican politics in Minnesota.
Yep, so that's 3 names, and Ralph Norman, Matt Rosendale. So there's the 5. There's already 5 right there. And then there's already a bunch of people who are also not going to get on board with Kevin McCarthy, too. So the votes are already there, and the number is looking more like it's about 20 people from the GOP caucus who will oppose Kevin McCarthy. So we are getting new leadership.
Yeah, so, I mean, U.S. Senate stays with the old turtle. The U.S. House possibly has new leadership, which is, I think, needed at this point. So let's break it down into Minnesota, but I think we know. Then the Minnesota House makes a big switch, and this kind of came as a shock to a lot of political insiders, but they ousted Kurt Dowd and Ann New, who had been in leadership way too long and had definitely moderated the caucus and moved it far left. They replaced the leadership with someone I don't think that's going to be that different, right? That much of a conservative.
Right. Yeah, DeMuth, I mean, I don't see much of a difference either, and I know that she was supportive of that, what was that discrimination bill on the hair?
What is that? The Crown Act.
Right, yeah, the Crown Act. I remember that she was a supporter of it and spoke on behalf of it. It's like, you got to be kidding me. That's not Republicanism.
Well, we'll see. We'll see.
Right.
We'll see where she goes with it, like to give everyone their due, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So at least there's 2 replacements there. So now what happens to the party, because the biggest eggshell of all of them is the party losing everything.
Yep.
Although their talking points are hilarious, right? They'll talk about.
Yeah, but if you talk to David Hand, he'll tell you it's a success. It's like you just lost every single election.
Every single thing. You lost every statewide election.
And you divided the party big time.
Divided the party big time. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
You lost the House. You lost the Senate. It's all on you. You got out fundraised 20-1. So this is how it works in Minnesota. The Republican Party has delegates. And when you get to the state level, and there's actually a convention that's in May of an election year, there's about 2,200-ish delegates, and then another twice that in alternates, but about 2,200-ish delegates. That's who determines who the candidates are for statewide office. In the non-election years, they used to determine who the party leadership is. They still do at the lower levels. There's a change. I think this was a Jennifer Carnahan thing, the crazy person that used to run the party. And that is now gone. The elections for this go to December of the election year. And the people deciding that are something called state central delegates. It's like kind of like almost like a super delegate the Democrats have in some sense, although they don't have like an extra powerful vote when it comes to determining candidates. But it's a much smaller pool of people. It's like 300 delegates. And so this is like the party insiders. And the party insiders, I mean, I'm not saying they're all bad people, by the way. I mean, Dale's in that. I know a lot of good people that are.
Yeah, it's sometimes just good activists that, like to stay involved and make good choices, make the party more conservative. But also, there's a lot of people that have been there too long.
Yes, a lot of people that are, and legislators and stuff like that.
Yep.
In fact, I think Tony Jurgens might be a.
Oh no! If he should be kicked out if he is.
Out.
Oh yeah, I mean we all know what he did to Tom DePel and helping the Democrat and losing the state Senate for the Republicans. So if he's there, kick him out.
So these are the people that select who the chair, the deputy chair, and the secretary is. The treasurer is actually appointed. We'll talk about that too. This is a real interesting story. So anyhow, that's happening this Saturday. So if you are a Republican, you're sitting at home in Minnesota, you're not even a delegate. Even if you were a delegate, it doesn't matter. If you're just a regular Republican, the person leading the party is going to be determined this Saturday already with basically very few options. And you don't even get to voice your opinion on this. It's just the 300 insiders. In fact, everyone that's running gets an email list of 300, and that's who they're making the appeal to. So running for re-election, despite his terrible resume, is David Hand. Let's pull up the video here. First clip on CBS. Did a post-election analysis with Esme Murphy, who has got to be the most boring journalist on the planet. Like what passes for a journalist these days is unbelievable. And she's definitely no fan of conservatives. By the way.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, I've seen some of her interviews before where she's dealing with a conservative and. All of the questions are pointed. She's trying to paint someone in a corner. It's not real journalism.
Oh, she actually does in this interview. And of course, David Hand's not smart enough to figure his way out of that one. Anyhow, let's pull this up here. This is David Hand. This is the guy that's going to inspire us to. Do you not have the video queued up at 26 seconds? Okay, go ahead and let's play the first clip then.
And joining us right now is the GOP chair for Minnesota, David Hand. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
All right. I know a lot of Republicans, I assume including yourself, were pretty disappointed about the midterm elections. What went wrong?
Well, I think there was a high expectation by not just people here in Minnesota, but across the country that the so-called red wave or the pent-up desire for stronger Republican governance just turned out not to be true for the most part. With some exceptions, but there was a lot of things that we saw that were very encouraging. We had a very strong turnout in about 86 of our 87 counties. We had the most Republican votes ever. Our governor candidate, attorney general candidate got more votes than any Republican candidate ever has. The governor, Tim Walz, was reelected with a lower vote total than he had the first time, which hasn't happened since 1958. We had a very strong showing down in CD1 where we had a special election, a primary, and a general election, which all went very well for us. And I think the legislative races, they were very, very close and frankly could have gone either way. And I believe the dynamics of the legislative races are significantly different than what you see at a statewide race. So there's a lot that we looked at internally that gives us some cause to be optimistic about the future.
Is it on? Oh, gotcha. All right.
That didn't stir you up there, Jake?
Actually, our mission is to attack Republicans, which is a joke.
Right.
It was the party. It was David Hand who cut off data access for, what was that, like 5 candidates? I don't even know how many
Many of them endorsed. Many of them endorsed by the party.
Well, no, they're all endorsed candidates. That's why they had party access.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Exactly.
He's the one that went out there and called Doug Wardlow a liar. Called Jeremy Munson, who's actually a sitting legislator, called him a liar. These guys are just cronies. So interesting. And by the way, they attack Wardlow and Munson in primaries, and yet they're silent on all the other races. They don't go out there and defend against their conservative grassroots candidates that were endorsed when they were challenged by opponents, like Eric Pratt, who didn't abide by the endorsement in Senate District 54 and ran against Natalie Barnes. They didn't do anything about Utke. So this guy's just a corrupt. He's the same kind of corrupt. And this guy's running again.
Yeah.
Same corruption.
Oh, yeah. And he was the same guy who didn't want us to have paper ballots at the state convention.
Right.
He didn't want us to be able to vote like conservatives. He wanted to give us a little clicker. And this was unconstitutional according to the Minnesota bylaws, the GOP bylaws. It says in there that we're supposed to be able to vote for whoever we want. We're allowed to be able to write someone in. You can't write someone in with a clicker. Right. And I knew I didn't feel like my vote was secure there.
Yeah, and I'm aware that someone asked for an audit, and they didn't even allow for an audit there, too.
And they promised they were going to.
Right, yeah. Anyhow, this guy's a snooze fest.
Yeah.
Another thing from the CBS, if you could pull up that second clip, Scott Jensen, we talked about this a while ago, blames the abortion issue, says this is a big thing. And Hand was terrible on this issue, but go ahead and pull up this clip. This is really fascinating.
Let me ask you about a comment that Dr. Scott Jensen made after the election, which of course he lost. And he said that Republicans cannot win without changing their position on abortion. The Republicans can't win without changing their position on abortion. Can you address that?
Well, I think our party has always been a pro-life party. We frankly take that right out of the Declaration of Independence. We think our country has the same principle, one of the natural rights under natural law, as Jefferson called it, the right to life. And our party's position has been, at least in my mind, for some time, that anything that we can do to improve where we are as a society, to respect life more, is a plus. What we have in Minnesota is an unrestricted right to abortion up to the moment of birth, taxpayer funded. We think that's a very extreme
But do you have to
position.
change that? Dr. Scott Jensen says you need to change that position in order to win more. Do you agree with him?
I think we have to make sure people understand, excuse me, that, pardon me, that our position on life is that we honor life, we respect life, and we welcome any improvement in the regimen that we currently have, which right now is very restricted.
And
I mean, and this is also the guy, David Hand. Speaking of the state central meeting that's happening on Saturday to determine who the next chair is, if you're pro-life, I don't know how you select this guy, because he really screwed you over. So first of all, he tells all candidates statewide, and we've exposed this on our show multiple times. We've read the letter. He says that this is the proved talking point of the GOP, that abortion is a constitutionally protected right in Minnesota, which is a lie. That's not true at all. But that's
then
what he
also
told the candidates.
in that interview, so abortion is a constitutionally protected right, but life is a protected right by the Declaration of Independence.
Hey, look at the hypocrisy there.
Right, it's like, what are you talking about? Both of those things cannot be true.
I know. It's so fascinating. This guy's just a liar. Anyhow, he tells this to these candidates, so they sell out on the pro-life movement. Now, there are a lot of good ones like Mortensen that didn't do that, but these guys all lost. So so essentially, and this is what we said at the time. We said this at the time. You don't do this because when you abandon your principles, then there's a chance you might still lose and you're left with nothing. And so this is what's going to happen. The guys like Hand think that the party's got to moderate. Now, he's kind of pushing back a little bit on Scott Jensen, but let's be honest. This is the guy that put the talking points. They don't believe that this is a good issue for them, and it is a decent issue for them. They just have to frame it the right way because the left is the one that are radical on this issue. They're the ones that think you can kill an 8.5-month-old 7-pound baby. Why don't you talk about that? I mean, that's what they do with you guys. They expose you as a radical, expose them as the radicals. But, yeah, I mean, from a pro-life perspective, this guy is selling you out. And a lot of these Republican establishment people are. So this race is happening on Saturday, which is, I think a lot of times the establishment likes to just have these races real quick so that there's not a lot of time for challenges.
Oh, yeah.
Because quite frankly, David Hand was going to coast to another term as chair had he won. I mean, the Attorney General's office, the auditor office, even if he didn't win the governorship, but let's say he won that, won a Senate majority, won a House majority, he probably would have been the chair again, right? Because look at this guy. This guy's a brainiac, even though he got raised by 20-1. But that's not what happened. And so now everyone's like, oh, well, now what do we do with the party? And they've got less than a month to figure it out. And people have to start up campaigns. And they did. They did. So we have Mike Murphy, who announced about 6 days ago he's going to run for chair.
Guy. I got some choice words for that guy. I mean, he decides he's going to get in this race. He is going to be the one to unite the Republican Party, And this is the guy who had promised us that I'm not happy with Mike Murphy. I'll just say this. He went out there during the convention. A lot of people are unhappy with Mike Murphy ever since that state convention. He went out there and endorsed Scott Jensen, a guy who I wasn't too crazy about either, and promises everybody. He says that Scott Jensen, I forgive him for what he tried to take our guns away, and he's never going to do it again. Then during the general election, Scott Jensen starts talking about his gun control ideas again, and Mike Murphy promises that he is going to get in this race. He's going to clean up the House and, run for chair. 5 days later, he puts out a statement saying he's backing out.
Yeah, let's pull
no
that
big
up there,
surprise
Dustin.
for
This
me.
came out yesterday from the Mike Murphy for Inman GOP chair thing. I hope this message finds you well. Why don't you scroll up a little bit? It was nice to have a few warm days before blah, 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 blah. Unfortunately, at this time, I don't know why I read the stuff that doesn't matter. Unfortunately, at this time, I cannot continue to seek the position of Inman GOP chair. I value everyone that supported me and signed the petition to nominate me. For those that don't understand, in order to actually run for chair, the party's got a rule where they have to get 35 signatures of state central delegates, and they have to turn that into the party. So the party that's controlled by which is your opposition, now gets a document that says who their enemies are.
Yeah.
Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
And I think the rules are that you have it's got to be 35 people who pledge to vote for you on the first ballot. So it means that if there's 4 people running, they can't be the same people on different ones because they couldn't possibly vote for multiple people on the same ballot unless you're a Democrat. So then what they're going to do is they're going to basically get, well, what's 4 times 35? That's it's 130, 140, 130. Shoot, 140. That's what it is. Math on the fly. That wasn't bad, right? Kids stay in school. So they get 140 of the delegates. It's almost half the whole delegation. They're going to know where they sit. That's a nice little thing to give the opposition. Anyhow, that's the rule as it currently stands. So anyhow, however, life throws us curveballs that we cannot plan for, and an opportunity that my family and I never anticipated was presented to us this morning. If elected to chair, I would not be able to give my full attention, dedication, devotion to the position. I want to be clear with you. I'm not running away from anything. I will still be actively involved with our party, grassroots, and doing whatever I can to ensure Republicans govern Minnesota. Now, scroll up there. I missed in the first paragraph.
Right. In that
Yeah,
first
I missed a
paragraph,
big
he
part.
said, once I make a commitment, I see it through
I know,
all the way.
I
Next
passed over
sentence, I'm quitting. I'm giving up. It's like, you are a joke.
Well, I passed over that because I thought he was just talking about the weather, right? He starts
Right.
his first sentence talking about the warm weather. So he writes, it is not easy for me to send this email because I am the type person that sees things through. And once I make a commitment, I complete the task no matter what.
Matter what.
Except for here.
Yep.
So whatever happened with Mike Murphy, I'd be very interested.
Right.
Why he all of a sudden-
You got to wonder, was he trying to run the clock so that Liberty people couldn't have anyone, or maybe he realized he couldn't win? Maybe he, I don't know what the reason is, but I don't like that he did this. And, now it leaves people with a shorter time frame to find someone to take out hand. So, we're at where we're at. He's not saying anything about the corruption.
Right. Yeah, it's your job when you see corruption to speak out against it, right? So, And then the secretary position, which that actually has a lot of interest, and quite frankly, seems like there's probably some decent candidates on that one.
Mm-hmm.
So I know William would like to see Alec Beck win that position.
Yep, that'd be nice.
William's actually out of the state right now. He's making up a lot of time. He was pretty busy during election season, so can't wait to have him back on the show. The treasurer position is not up for grabs. That's actually appointed by the chair. This is a really fascinating thing. So as if the Inman GOP isn't already crazy enough and just a complete failure, there's a lot of buzz going around those circles about this treasurer's report that was sent out to delegates.
Mm-hmm.
And this was, I think, yesterday or 2 days ago. I think it was Monday night. I think it's clearly got to be Monday night because a lot of people are thinking the guy hit the eggnog a little early for the holiday season. Pull this up. We literally are not going to read this all. This is sent from, his name is Lee Princola, something like that. Princola. I can't pronounce that.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's too small on the screen for me. He says, treasurer's message, because 10 minutes is not enough. So apparently they're just going to do a 10-minute message at State Central to talk about the finances. I always wonder if these finances, they talk about like retiring the debt and they talk about this. And I don't know what these guys, I'd love to see an audit of the books, external audit of these things.
Yeah.
I just don't know if I trust the way they do it. And plus,
yeah.
finances are interesting. You can always show what you want to show, right? But the real picture is different.
Sure.
All right. So anyhow, he starts out with, hello, you glorious 300 AK State Central delegates and alternatives. That's like talking about the 300 at the Battle of Thermopylae, the Spartans. The infamous movie 300 was based off of. That's his angle. He doesn't explain that until real later on. Now just look, here's the first 10 paragraphs, and there's already formatting issues. There's sentences in here that just don't even make sense. He just rambles on. I mean, it's insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like he'll be on the subject and then he'll be like off. He'll like go on tangents in his head. Like when you talk to someone and you're having a conversation and they do this, you're kind of like, stay with me, buddy, stay with me. He's doing this and writing it down. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
And grammatical errors left and right. Now keep scrolling down. Look at this thing. I mean, how does it say like 5 pages here? Like this is crazy. Keep going.
I think it's one of 8.
Oh, and then he's got snowflake warning. Then he changes text color. Blue, then purple. I mean, you got to read this. I don't know if we could put it in our show notes or something. Keep going. Rambling. He's bringing up beef with people he knows. He's then talking about how great the chair is, which is David Hand. Keeps going. Keep going. It's so bizarre. Goes through some votes. No charts yet. Back to blue. Oh, I should have just picked out a couple paragraphs that just don't even make sense. All caps, spell with spaces between it. Are we close to the end here? I mean, this is what he sends out to people. It doesn't make a lot of sense. He's rambling. Some are just so grammatically off. Now we're back to purple text. Keep going. Dawson's just cracking up over there. Signed by Lee Princola. Yeah, Princola CPA. A lot have accused him of, sipping back a little bit of Grandpa's old cough medicine.
That's what it looks like. That's what it looks like. And didn't Hand just say that he's...
Because they're so cheap. Wait, I would have read this for a 10% coupon.
I want Lee for chair. I say we get this guy for chair. He's good. It'll be fun at least.
I think he should run the social hour at GOP
Yeah, sure,
for sure. I mean, this
sure.
guy is probably pretty interesting.
Oh,
He should
yeah.
run the show. So yes, Han is apparently canning him. So the Han administration will read this thing. He's defending David Han, and
Yeah.
David Han's probably heard from a lot of people like, "What is this unprofessional treasurer's report?" Remember, this is the guy that goes on and signs like your publicly available forms to do something so unprofessional. Is just crazy, and then literally admits no one's approved this message, which is insane. And so Han has to respond, and he thanked Lee for all his work, but if he's reelected this Saturday, he's not going to be reappointed as treasurer. So
What a shame.
what's behind this one, Mr. Tinfoil Hat?
No, I really don't know. I didn't read the full email yet, and I've just seen the things on the news and what people are saying, and I mean, obviously this guy was probably drunk when he sent this email, and it doesn't make any sense, and it shows how sporadic his mind is, and I don't know what to make of it, honestly, though.
Yeah.
Do you have any conspiracies?
I mean, it almost seems like the guy didn't want the job anymore.
Yeah,
You know?
right. Like he's doing it to himself.
Right.
Right. That yeah, it's an interesting
Took
one.
a shot
I
at
don't
Doug
know.
Wardlow in it. I know that.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah. So it's not like he's, this like grassroots conservative guy, but he's probably been around the party forever.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah. Well, there you go. So that's Saturday. That shit shows this Saturday. So essentially what we're trying to say is, whether it's the federal Republicans or the state Republicans, we got a real problem on our hands. We're not going to win anything if you just keep going with the same old people. I used to go to these BPOU meetings. For those that don't know what that is, that's just your local Republican group. And we'd always hear the same old saying, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. And yet that is exactly what happens in politics. Doing the same thing over and over again. And somehow, miraculously, we're going to beat those dang Democrats in 2 years, which is insane. The big problem with the party is they don't raise hardly any money. If you really get into their books, like in Minnesota, I'm not making a broad statement because there's probably Republican parties like Florida and Texas that are doing just fine. But in Minnesota, and you look at their books and who's donating, it is like the crony capitalist. It's like big donors, corporate donations if it's going to an entity that can accept them. It's not like the grassroots. They don't raise a ton of money from small donors. And by the way, if you give the party $50, you get it refunded by the state.
Yeah.
It's called the PCR program. And they still don't raise a lot of money. I mean, that's a terrible program, but
it is.
The Democrats use it, so the Republicans have to use it until you change the law. And so, yeah, they're not funded by the grassroots. And it's probably the easiest explanation of why guys like David Hand don't help out the conservative grassroots, because they're just answering to their master, and their master is big
people
special
funding them, right?
Right.
Yep. So exactly, no, it's not the the grassroots people of Minnesota that are Liberty people. They're donating to candidates. They're not giving that money to Hand because they know it's not going to be spent on their interests. It's going to be spent against conservative Republicans in primaries. That's how the GOP spends their money.
So here's my suggestion. If you want to build the party, because the party is so pathetic. It literally is pathetic. There's like zero money, right? You can't possibly get worse. And someone will argue, well, it was worse when Jennifer Carnahan left it over. It's really not much better. Even Jennifer Carnahan had a Senate majority. So the party is literally as bad as it can get, right? Without money, without any governing majority, which is what David Hand's objective is, governing majority. So you failed at that. And so what are you going to do? You're going to keep doing the same thing, have the cronies that just go to the big special interest, or are you going to turn to the grassroots? The grassroots concerns, inspire people. Like, why is Action for Liberty an enemy of yours? Right? David Hand, why are we an enemy of yours? Like, we're conservative. We believe in your platform. We actually like the platform of the Republican Party. That we're in agreement with it. I haven't looked at it in a while. It's like 1,000 pages long. But honestly, I think I agree with just about everything in it. And a lot of members at Action for Liberty belong to the Republican Party. A lot of the people we turned out to go to caucus went into the Republican ranks. Some went Democrat, which would have been pretty interesting listening to those caucuses. Defending a woman's right to choose what to do with her health care on masks and and vaccines.
Oh, yeah.
Probably fell on deaf ears over there. At least the Republican ranks want to hear that. So you turn to the grassroots conservatives, and that's how you fundraise. And so a lot of the big special interests are still going to come your way because they are fearful of what's going to happen at election time. And then there's this faction that's not going to like it, and they're going to leave you. In the case like Tony Jurgens, they will endorse Democrats. But good. It's good to get rid of those rats, right? Get rid of those people. Get them out of the party. They don't belong here. They're the ones that are ruining the brand.
Yep.
Right? They don't stand for anything. And so the party's got to start standing for something. Now, I'm saying all this, and I can guarantee if David Hand gets reelected, nothing's going to change, right? They're going to come up with something like, we got a 5-point plan. Actually, that was the thing about Jensen. They came out with 10-point plans all the time.
Yeah.
Stop doing these stupid plans. You're not going to fix it. You got to have leadership change. You got to have someone that's appealing. David Hand puts you to sleep. Mitch McConnell looks like a turtle. What the heck? What are we doing here?
Yep. No,
So you gotta-
exactly. It's the same battle like we were saying with the Kevin McCarthy thing, that we just want a chair who's going to be fair, who's going to treat everybody respectfully. You don't have to be as hardcore as me. I don't need that. I just need someone who'll treat me fairly, and they won't try to divide us. Tap into the potential of every person in your party.
Yeah, don't screw over the grassroots conservatives.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. There you go. Run on that.
Yeah.
So I think someone's going to pop up and run for Saturday. We'll let you know how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
Wish we could stream it live, especially Lee's part, but
Yeah.
I'm sure that's not going to be allowed.
Yep. And
All
I
right.
hope I just gave Lee that idea to run for chair. I can't wait to see it happen.
That's it's your new homeboy, huh?
I guess so.
Trump's going to be jealous. All right, well, that's all we got for today. We'll be back next week with another show. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.